Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Rough Draft Sportscast. I am your host, Damon Kennedy. If you're listening on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and become one of the RDS gang. If you're already a subscriber, then y'all already know. So let's get into this thing, man. Today we'll be starting with our 2020 Minnesota Golden Gophers season outlook. As an alumni at the University of Minnesota, as well as an avid fan of Big Ten football, we'll be breaking down the Gopher football program from a multitude of angles. So today we'll be focusing on the 2020 Minnesota Golden Gophers offensive unit as it stands heading into the season. The Golden Gophers have been rowing the boat under head coach PJ Fleck for 3 seasons now, and so far all he's done is bring in 3 of the highest rated recruiting classes in school history, win Big Ten Coach of the Year, oversee development of current Big Ten Wide Receiver of the Year Rashod Bateman, win 11 games for the first time in over 100 years, beat Wisconsin for the first time in 13 years, and the last time you saw him on the sideline he was doused in Gatorade because he had just beat the brakes off of Auburn in the Outback Bowl. These Golden Gophers were 11-2 last year as the second youngest team in the nation that only lost 7 total starters, 5 of which were actually drafted in April, headlined by safety Antoine Winfield Jr. and wide receiver Tyler Johnson, who were both drafted by the Tampa Bay Tom Brady's. Buccaneers. The 2019 Gopher football team beat 2 top 10 teams in Auburn and Penn State and only missed the Big Ten championship game and a Rose Bowl by 1 loss at the end of the season to the hated Wisconsin Badgers. So what do I expect from PJ Fleck and the Golden Gophers this year? The same damn thing. This Gopher football program has finally been able to establish an identity with a suffocating run-pass option and ball control tempo made to keep the defense on the field and off balance. The anchor of the Golden Gopher offense is that massive offensive line, highlighted by 6'9", 400-pound right tackle Daniel Fa'alele. This Gophers line is the largest in the country and only features 2 seniors. This line generally consists of a 6-man rotation and relies on being intelligent, agile, and technically sound. There is no real flash to this line, just gritty, sustained drives that zap the life from opposing defenses. Case in point was the Outback Bowl game versus Derek Brown and the vaunted Auburn defensive line. That offense had their way with Auburn's defense to the tune of 494 yards on 37 minutes of time of possession. The ability of the line to control the tempo and pound the rock has proved to be the calling card of the Gopher offense all season, and I am confident that the Gophers offensive line can continue that trend or maybe even improve upon that performance with another year under their belt of sustained development. As far as skill position players, this Gopher offense contains some of the best in the Big Ten and the nation. Redshirt junior running back Mohamed Ibrahim has quietly placed himself on the radar of running backs to watch this year with career rushing totals of 1,764 yards and 16 touchdowns, all while previously splitting carries with Rodney Smith and Shannon Brooks. Mo has always been the best, in my opinion. He reads the blocks perfectly, runs with patience, then delivers a blow to oncoming defenders. He absolutely shredded defenses last year for 5.3 yards per carry. This year, as the lead back, I can honestly see him getting close to 6 yards per carry. So while the Gophers have some capable backups at the running back position, including Bryce Williams and Trayson Potts, as well as electric incoming freshman Kai Thomas, I feel that 2020 is the year that Mo puts himself in the top of the Big Ten statistics with a steady dose of carries in this potent offense. As we move on to the wide receiver position, look no further than Big Ten Wide Receiver of the Year Rashod Bateman. In just 2 seasons, he has amassed over 1,900 yards and 17 touchdowns, with a 17.3 average yards per catch. His combination of size, speed, and technical ability have allowed Bateman to progress into an elite wide receiver. With just a little bit more attention to detail in perfecting his route running, he could prove to become an even bigger problem for opposing defenses this year. So it's needless to say that Rashod Bateman has become the wide receiver to stop this year, and has already seen his name added to the 2021 NFL Draft Watch and the preseason All-American list. What's even more significant is that he is the first ever Gopher wide receiver to hold that honor. What will be interesting to watch this year, though, will be whether or not Chris Autman-Bell is ready to solidify that number 2 spot in the lineup. With Tyler Johnson gone, Bateman will now receive most of the attention, so it is up to Autman-Bell to win those one-on-one matchups on the outside consistently enough to make defenses account for him. While statistically Autman-Bell has not produced big numbers, his fingerprints were evident in every Gophers win in 2019, including his toe tap in the end zone to keep us alive in Fresno State. Coach Fleck has a proven record for getting the most out of his wide receivers, so I fully expect Autman-Bell to step up and show out. And finally, on the offensive side of the ball, we have to highlight the stellar play of redshirt junior quarterback Tanner Morgan. In 2019, Tanner Morgan quietly put up one of the most successful seasons of all quarterbacks in college football. Morgan finished the season with 3,200 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, earning him a 178.7 QB rating, which was 5th in the nation, trailing only Tua, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, and Justin Fields. That is elite company considering the top 2 on the list were drafted in the top 5 picks of the 2020 NFL Draft. Did I mention Trevor Lawrence in that top 5 group? That's right, I didn't, because Tanner Morgan smoked Trevor Lawrence's 166 QBR with all that talent he was surrounded by in Clemson. Some say he may be the top pick in 2021, but the numbers show that my boy Tanner Morgan is the more efficient quarterback on a less heralded team playing in a tougher conference. Morgan has even caught the eye of Mel Kiper as a potential first-round quarterback sleeper for the 2021 draft. But knowing Morgan, he is laser-focused like always on the task at hand, which is winning the Big Ten title. The Gophers do have Zach Annexstad as a backup. He has previous starts under his belt and was in competition for the number 1 job last year before a broken foot ended his season in spring ball. So as of now, I would think that he is the number 2, but he is facing some stiff competition in redshirt sophomores Jacob Clark and Cole Kramer. The one area of improvement that I hope to see from Tanner Morgan this year is the ability to put more velocity on the ball on his throws outside the hashes. And more importantly, the tunnel screen throw needs to be much faster. Since the tunnel screen proved to be so successful this year, there were way too many times that the ball floated to the receiver, causing them to slow their stride. If that ball comes out a little hotter, it'll be much easier for the wide receiver to catch on the move. Another interesting thing to note would be how we use our red shirts in their 4 available games of service this year. I think a couple of games where they could see some action would be against Florida Atlantic, Purdue, Northwestern, and possibly the game versus Michigan State. So we could actually use those 4 games of hypothetically weaker opponents to get those guys some mop-up duty. I personally would like to see Jacob Clark be able to throw some passes this year. Between his spring game performance and his handful of snaps last year, I saw flashes of immense potential in his ability to put velocity on the short throws and beautiful touch on the deep routes. He definitely has some Big Ten arm talent, but it'll be interesting to see if he has improved his mobility in this offseason. If he has shown an ability to grasp the offense, Zach Annexstad could be in for some stiff competition this summer for the number 2 spot. Minnesota is actually in a perfect position to redshirt some of their top recruits for the 2020 season on the offensive side of the ball, starting with running back Kai Thomas from Kansas. With Mo Ibrahim being the cemented starter, I believe the running back stable will be in good hands this year without needing him to see huge reps, but I would still like to see him get some carries this year, especially against some Big Ten opponents. Another redshirt I'd like to see on the offensive side of the ball is our incoming wide receiver Daniel Jackson. With the Gophers already having Rashod Bateman, Chris Autman-Bell, and Demetrius Douglas, they have time to let him get some game reps and develop behind some capable upperclassmen. But much like Kai Thomas, I would love to see Jackson get some live reps in his 4 available games this year. Now, I'm sure some of you noticed that I did not include new offensive coordinator Mike Sanford Jr., formerly of Utah State, in this breakdown of expectations. The reason I did not do so is because co-offensive coordinator Matt Simon already is in place, and Coach Fleck's particular style of offense, I do not expect wholesale changes to philosophy. I am, however, looking forward to see if he adds a few wrinkles to include the tight ends into the offense as something more than just an inline blocker. We have some talent in the tight end position, and I would love to see Brevin Spanford get some looks up the seams and in the red zone. So there you have it, a quick breakdown of the 2020 Minnesota Golden Gophers offense heading into summer practices, which I'm sure will either answer some of these questions about whether or not the Gophers offensive unit can improve on their performance for last year, or they may just give us some new questions to ponder heading into 2021. I personally am quite confident that this offense will be just as potent, if not even more dangerous. So that's all we have for today. Next episode, we'll be breaking down the defensive side of the ball for the 2020 Minnesota Golden Gophers football team. Until then, I'm your host, Damon Kennedy, and this has been the Rough Draft Sportscast. Thank you all for joining us. Y'all be easy.
Rough Draft Sportscast.